people go on trips all the time, whether they get annoyed with their parents or significant other, need a fresh start, or are just looking for a little getaway. 20-something-year-olds are notorious for bouncing for a few days. When Keeshae Jacobs didn't come home one night, her mom may have feared for the worst, but the cops didn't think much of it. I mean, the girl was 21 years old and had a social life, so it's possible she just went away for the weekend or had an extended sleepover at a friend's house or something. But as the days turn into weeks, and now years, the location of Keeshae still remains a mystery. On the night of September 26, 2016, 21-year-old Keeshae Jacobs sent her mom, Toni, a quick text saying she would be spending the night with a friend and that she'd talk to her in the morning. And I know what you're probably thinking. What 21-year-old still gives their mom the play-by-play like that? But at that point, Keeshae was still trying to figure out her career path, so she was still living with her mom, and they talked to each other around the clock like that. Like, I know most people are pretty tight with their mom, but Keeshae was like super tight with her mom, Toni. They talked about boy drama, went to the mall together, and Toni even coached Keeshae's cheerleading squad in middle school. All you need to know at this point is Keeshae and her mom were BFFs through and through. When Toni got the text from Keeshae that she wasn't coming home that night, she didn't want to be too much of a helicopter mom, so she didn't pry about where her daughter was or who she was with. Honestly, Toni was just glad to be in the loop. Now, Keeshae would normally send her mom a few texts on the nights when she would go out, but this particular evening, Toni didn't hear anything else from her daughter. Like any other mother, she was slightly concerned, but assumed Keeshae was just having fun with her friends and would talk to her in the morning. The next day, Toni got up super early for work. She was a dispatcher, so it was early. Since Toni knew Keeshae was spending the night with some friends, she didn't expect for her to be home yet. So Toni went off to work with the hope that Keeshae would call or text her in no time. They always talked during Toni's lunch break around 11 or 12, so she knew she could at least count on that check-in later in the day. But Toni's lunch break came and went, and still no word from Keeshae. Toni kept calling Keeshae's phone, but it kept going straight to voicemail. And one would typically just assume that Keeshae's phone died and she would contact her mom as soon as she could, but Toni was really smart and she taught Keeshae to always let her know when her phone was about to run out of battery. Since Toni couldn't get through to her daughter, she called her son Davon to see if he knew where his sister was. Thankfully, he picked up the phone, but he told Toni that the last time he talked to Keeshae was the night before. At that point, Toni finished out what was probably the most daunting shift of her life, and as soon as she got off, she decided to take action. Toni started reaching out to Keeshae's friends and knocking on doors, but nobody knew where Keeshae was. Something that made the part of this search pretty hard was the fact that Toni didn't even know where Keeshae was that night or who she was with. Well, that's one sure way to slow things down. Since Keeshae hadn't contacted her mom or brother and none of her friends knew anything, Toni went to the cops to report her daughter as missing on September 28th, about a day and a half after she was last seen. And of course, like most cases that involve missing people in their early 20s, the cops were all like, "How do you know she's missing? Sounds like she just ran away for a bit." Mind you, these officers are telling this to Toni, who knows Keeshae more than anyone in this world. Or at least that's what she thought. To be fair, as close as Toni was with her daughter, there's no way for her to truly know what was going on in her head. Who's to say Keeshae wasn't just fed up with something in her life that led her to skip town? It's possible that she could have been a really convincing actor, which is why no one knew she was going through anything. Just a thought. And even though it was possible that Keeshae bounced and ghosted everyone, the more time that passed, the more it looked like she was in imminent danger. But before the cops started an official investigation, Toni was already conducting a search of her own. She and Keeshae's friends started going door to door, asking neighbors if anyone knew anything about where Keeshae was. And that's when Keeshae's friends were all like, "Wait, Toni, I left out a bunch of information about the night Keeshae went missing." Oh, I'm absolutely sure Toni was livid to find out her daughter's friends were withholding information. And it's also super suspicious that they failed to mention anything when Toni first contacted them. That could mean something there. Oops, I almost forgot to tell you what that information was. So, one of Keeshae's besties, DeMarcus, told Toni that he dropped Keeshae off at some other dude's house on the night she went missing. DeMarcus didn't know who exactly Keeshae was meeting up with, but he was under the belief that it was a mutual female friend who she was meeting at this guy's house. Which already has me skeptical. She's meeting up with a girlfriend at a guy's house and no one really knows who this girl or guy are? Now, there are conflicting reports on whether or not Keeshae's friends had a text conversation with this so-called female friend. DeMarcus said he texted this chick to confirm he was going to take Keeshae to meet her, but the girl said she never received any text of that sort. Okay, but isn't there a way for detectives to look through phone records to confirm this alleged text? Seems like a pretty simple fix, but then again, I'm sure it's darn near impossible to pull phone records based on some of the other crimes we've covered. Once Toni was informed about this super important detail that she should have been told right off the bat, she had DeMarcus give her directions to the house he took Keeshae to that night. When Toni rolled up to the house, she talked to the guy who lived there. He said he knew Keeshae and saw her that night, but claimed she called for a ride shortly after showing up, so she left. I feel like this just isn't adding up. Like, why would Keeshae even go over there to begin with if she just left? And Toni didn't really buy what this guy was saying either. He first told her that Keeshae came over at 5 p.m., but at that time, Toni knew Keeshae was home because she stopped by her house to pick up some books and Keeshae literally brought them out to her. So Toni was like, dude, she wasn't here at 5 because she was still home. And then the guy was like, she come over at 5:15. 5:30, 6:25, and he literally just kept pushing back Keeshae's arrival time until it matched up with Toni's story. Toni was fairly certain this guy was more involved in Keeshae's disappearance than he led up to be, so she called the police to get them out to this guy's house to search it, but they were unable to find any signs of Keeshae. Although Toni mentioned the officer's search was pretty lazy. And just like that, Toni was back out on the streets posting flyers, calling everyone on her contact list twice, and driving all around Creation just hoping to locate her daughter in one piece. Later, the actual owners of the house that the guy was living in reached out to Toni. They found out about what was going on and offered for Toni to look through the house again. Toni, being the ultimate mama bear sleuth, obviously took them up on the offer. But I wonder why these homeowners were so quick to invite her over. It's possible that they cared a lot about Keeshae's well-being, but it also makes me think they were doing everything in their power to make sure they didn't look suspicious. Either way, Toni was just trying to find any evidence that may give her clues as to where her daughter was. During her search, Toni found out the house had a basement that the investigators somehow missed in their first sweep of the house. And in that basement, there were some sketchy tissues in the trash with vital fluid. Toni was super cautious the whole time and made sure not to tamper with any evidence, but she made note of everything and contacted the police to catch them up to speed and get them out to the house for a real search of the whole house, including the basement. According to Toni, who was apparently in touch with the homeowners, detectives came through the house multiple times with search dogs and they allegedly collected DNA samples. But this has never been confirmed by officials, so it's just a speculation at this point. Here's what we do know the detectives did. They looked through Keeshae's cell phone records and discovered her phone hadn't been on since the night she disappeared. Whether it died or someone turned it off, we don't know. Keeshae's bank account had absolutely no activity and her social media account showed no signs of her being on them at all. On top of that, investigators still couldn't find Keeshae's phone, ID, or personal belongings anywhere. So this girl was missing in all caps. And the guy who was renting the house Keeshae was dropped off at, yeah, he ran away once the investigation amped up. He was allegedly on parole for another crime involving a woman, so I have two theories about this. He either just ran away because he was scared for being caught breaking parole in some way, or he had something to do with Keeshae's disappearance and didn't want to be clocked for it. Based on his criminal background and the way he's been acting so far, I'm gonna go with the second option. So we're not exactly sure where this guy went, and at this point the general public still doesn't know who he is because his name hasn't been released, which is probably due to the fact that the case is still so fresh and is actively being pursued. For all we know, this guy may not even know he's a main suspect since his name hasn't been outed publicly, but I'm sure he knows. I can guarantee you homeboy didn't skip town for nothing. But even though investigators were continually coming up dry, Toni was still conducting her own more thorough investigation on her side. With the help of some family and friends, she posted a $3,000 reward for any tips leading to the perp's arrest. And in return, she had to weed through a bunch of fake tips, prank calls, and social media messages, most of which were people who were pretending to be Keeshae. This mom is having to deal with the unimaginable pain of losing a child, and these people are really just out there playing games with her. And if you think Toni was going through a tough time at that point, sadly, it just got worse from there. In January 2017, about 4 months after Keeshae's disappearance, Toni's son and Keeshae's brother was slain. Yeah, he literally was executed by someone else right around the time everyone was frantically searching for his sister. Which means poor Toni just lost both of her kids in the matter of months. At age 25, Keeshae's brother Davon was the oldest of the two. A few weeks before Keeshae disappeared, Davon came home after serving some time in jail for possessing illegal substances. Keeshae and Toni were so excited for him to come back, and all three were super close, so when Davon returned, it was like the family would finally be complete again. But sadly, not for long. On the day of Davon's tragic exit, he got into a fight with a guy named James outside of a Motel 6. The argument was apparently over a rental car that Davon hadn't returned, and James must have had a major anger issues because I guess that got him so mad and riled up that he chose to end the argument with bullets. Unlike Keeshae's story, Devon's was pretty easy to solve. Shortly after the incident, James was arrested and charged for the crime. Now, all you true crime junkies are probably already working out so many theories in your head, as am I. Any human with a hint of common sense can notice how strange this looks. Keeshae's disappearance was one thing, but now her brother is suddenly whacked? The odds of that being a coincidence seem pretty slim, right? But detectives exhausted that theory and came up with no connection between the two. Not gonna lie, I was super mad when I first heard this. These investigators seem to have flubbed a few times, so how do we know they did a thorough job in looking for a tie between the two? But the more you think about it, the less that theory glares at you. If this dude really did just off Davon for not returning a car, why would he go after Davon's sister months before? On the other hand, Davon and James could have had drama stewing for a while, and maybe by snatching up Keeshae, James was trying to send a demented message to Davon. If that's the case, message received loud and clear. James has yet to be tied to Keeshae's disappearance, but it wasn't long until another suspect waltzed into the investigation. In 2018, an unidentified source came forward claiming there was someone who knew where Keeshae was. This new suspect was some violent dude who was already in jail for other crimes involving abuse and women. So, he already fits the bill. The man's name has yet to be revealed, as it may jeopardize the investigation at this point, but a large portion of people who follow Keeshae's case believe this guy could be the same dude from the house Keeshae was dropped off at that fateful evening. And to me, that theory seems to check out. That guy who fled the house was reportedly on parole for crimes in a similar style, so it kind of makes sense. But with the information given out to the public at this point in time, there's really no way to tell. Keeshae's status and location still remains a mystery, and although Toni knows the daunting possibilities of what could have happened to her daughter, she still has hope that Keeshae will return home one day. She's created the Help Find Keeshae Jacobs Facebook page where people share updates, talk about new case findings, and keep Keeshae's memory alive in various ways. Toni has also partnered with the Richmond Mayor and PD to mark Missing Persons Day each April. She continues to advocate for families who have lost loved ones and recently joined a committee to help improve the communication and overall relationship between the police department and the community. Because if you remember, these cops literally asked Toni, "Are you sure?" when she told them her daughter was missing. So just imagine how they may have handled other cases with actual suspects. At the end of the day, Keeshae is still missing and her attacker could still be out there preying on other victims. Thanks to Toni, who is now my newfound hero, I have hope that we will see more progress in the case soon. I don't think that woman will stop until she has answers. And I don't blame her. See you next time.